That was a recording of Pengatera Lit, a piece written by a friend of the group at Queens College, Yuan Sari, by Dea Katut Dewa Lit, whose house we visited last year. We went there. I really am happy to be hosting today's Q class on basically just Gamelan and the experience of Gamelan through the eyes of our students and faculty. From this event is part of the Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month celebration, and we are very pleased to have everybody here listening and checking out. I think it'll be a fun event. It'll probably be run a little less than an hour, and we're going to listen to a whole bunch of various recordings and even some kind of silly stuff. I'd like to also thank Jane Cho, who is really heading up the effort for this month on the AAPI Heritage Awareness programs. And thanks to Robin Grasso for his technical work on this program and Justin Chicago. I'd like to introduce Fred Trumpy. Fred is the director of the QC Gamelan Yuanasari, and he will also be the host of today's event. Hey, Fred. How you
Thank
doing?
you, Michael. Yes, thank you for having me. Very excited to be here to talk about gamelan, specifically Balinese gamelan. And thank you, Michael. And we also have with us Dr. Ruka Shiranishi to talk about our ensemble and our experiences playing the music here in America as well as over in Bali. So thank you, Ruka, for joining us as well. So I guess the best place to talk about Balinese music is to talk about the instruments themselves. They're very unique. You could see them behind me, all hand carved instruments made by hand, as well. All of the bars, all of the drums made by hand. Let me change my camera. You could see we have all of these instruments here, and they're very unique. It's an ensemble made up primarily percussion instruments, metallophones specifically, and other gong instruments. And the unique thing we have here is specific tuning. If you're familiar with Balinese gamelan, you're aware of the tuning is very unique, not only to the culture, but each individual village. So it's a very insular style of music. Not that people aren't welcome, but it's the group tunes to themselves the same way an orchestra would tune to a piano if you're playing a concerto, for instance, right? So a couple of things that makes this unique is the tuning. These instruments are called samaradana, and that's basically a 40-year-old style of music that combines two different tunings. Before this, you would have one set of instruments for a specific tuning or key or mode, however you want to think of it. But the past 40 years, this instrument has, and this set of instruments had been created so that you could play multiple styles of music, different genres for different ceremonies. So it's a 7 scale instrument. You'll see this instrument over here called the Chow Lung. It's if we compare it to Western orchestral music, it's kind of like the cello section. It's in the mid to low range, and that is the main melodic instrument that you would be listening for. And I'm going to play a clip that kind of talks about all of this. But this is the Chow Lung that plays the main instrument. This would be kind of the viola and string instrument called the pomade. We have here some rayong pots, some gong instruments, and a kendong, a double-sided hand drum that kind of leads the group. So Ruka, Michael, and myself play in the gamelan, and we recently did a recording in which we described this the way that this music is broken down. Sometimes it's kind of hard to hear. The stylistically, the music can be very fast, loud, and very dense in its form and in its style. So I'm gonna share with you kind of a lecture demonstration that we often do in our concerts, just so people who aren't aware they can kind of get an understanding of how gamelan music works.
Pendet Nyambutan. It's just a celebratory dance or a welcome dance, but it was actually commissioned for the airport. When they opened the airport, they commissioned this small piece to welcome the visitors into Bali. Unfortunately, you won't see the dancer because she has a shoulder injury and she couldn't make it today. So we're going to deconstruct the piece just so you can see the way the whole thing works. In most music, you're listening to it from the top down, right? Like in Western music, you're listening to the violins or the singer or the electric guitar, whatever is at the highest point, and everything underneath serves as like an accompaniment. In this, the music is generated from basically the bottom up. So it starts with this one instrument that Ruka and Dylan are playing. They're going to play the Chow Lung. So that's a 4-note pattern. Georgia plays an abstraction of that, basically like half the tempo of it. And then Connor plays a 4-note pattern made up of 3 gongs. And the lowest gong kind of acts as like if you're looking at a grandfather clock as the clock face. And these are all the smaller cogs going at different speeds, different sizes. The low gong acts as the downbeat. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're gonna add Caitlin. She's gonna play the Qajar, which is keeping the beat for us nice and quiet. Now, if you notice while they're playing, they have one hand with one stick, and the other hand they're holding on to the bars. That is because when you hit the thing, it rings so much, you have to dampen every single note when you play. But the problem is trying to play quickly, you can't play quickly with one hand. So they divide all the parts into 2 parts, and it's called a kotekon. So the first thing we're going to hear, it's the polos, which is the primary, and the sangsi, which is the secondary. So first we're going to hear the polos. Then we're going to hear the sangsi part. You notice those gaps in there. Dum da dum da dum dum da dum da dum. When you put them together, it's circular. The next thing we're going to add is the rayong, which Freddie's playing. And we're going to add a little instrument called the cheng cheng. And then I'm going to play the drums, which acts as a cue to tell everybody when to go on, when to get louder, when to play softer.
I did forget the flute and the rebab on that one. Ruth, you coming back in and joining us? Yeah, I forgot the. So there's also the suling and the rebab. The string, Kyle Miller was playing the string, and Alex Smith plays are wonderful 2 string and woodwind players.
Yeah, so Michael, you were narrating it, explaining how it all works. And I think kind of the most important factor in that is kind of, one, it's a welcome piece. And two, that kind of the main idea is that we're following the dancer. It's all, we're all kind of beholden to the dancer following that form. So what I wanted to do next was share a majority of a clip that we did in Asheville playing another welcome piece called Gabor. We had learned this piece in our first trip to Bali, studying under Guste, an excellent musician and teacher. Just get this clip up. All right, so this is another welcome piece called Gabor. Right. So again, that was a welcome piece called Gabor with the amazing dancer Miranda Daniel Segundo, who dances with us a lot. And as you can see, he does an amazing job of kind of demonstrating the style of gamelan dance, where there's these really beautiful poses that follow the gong cycle and kind of show the drummer the tempo, who then in turn shows the ensemble, but also the kind of very minute details that you'll see in the finger positions and the eye movement, which is very crucial to Balinese gamelan dance. Um, Another aspect we wanted to talk about, and I think Michael will elaborate, um, is the concept of Gaia, which kind of comes from um, this really playful tradition, and and more recently is really encouraged through the university kind of tradition of this practice of Gaia. And Michael, if you want to get into that a little bit more.
Sure, absolutely. My phone camera just died, so I apologize for that. Just
All good.
seeing if I can get it work. It's a better viewpoint. There's something wrong with this camera setting on this my computer. The Yeah, I was funny. I was really kind of thinking back on that gig actually, and just the sense of gamelan, it's such like a community experience, you know what I mean? It's almost like funny, like you two went we all went to Bali together and performed at Dewa Lit's house in front of a small community of people. And um it's interesting, like here we are on a stage, yet when you do the music right, it has like this sense of like everybody's kind of having a good time. It's like a weird, it's like you can go to your friend's house and you play music, and a singer songwriter, as us classical musicians, we never do that, right? We never like go to people's house and just start playing like a string trio together or something. But like other forms and other cultures, playing music together is a sign of like community and love and enjoyment and seriousness too, right? Like this music can be serious at times. And that was one thing that struck me, that we all look like we're having a good time doing it, even though we're in this very kind of other atmosphere. And that kind of, again, then that brought me to the enjoyment of just playing gamelan. It's a funny thing, when originally my first go at playing gamelan, I was very lucky. I got to play at something called the PKB, which is just PKB. It's a long Indonesian word, 3 words, but it literally is the Balinese art festival that happens every July, and it's island wide, and it really has the kind of Freddie, I think, went with me the first time, and it can have the atmosphere of like a soccer game. I mean, no hooligans, but there is a lot of yelling and applauding during things, and smiling and buying food, and going to get a beer or something like that, and sitting in the stands. And it's a big auditorium, and I was lucky enough to be, and basically it's a series of events that happens over a month. Really, the island almost like stops, not really stops because everything else in tourism goes, but like musically, like everybody's preparing for this one event each year, and it's month long, and it goes on all day, and it's sponsored by the university, the conservatory, ISI, and it's in downtown Denpasar, and there are like multiple stages, but there are 4 nights that are like the capstone, and it's basically there are 7 regencies on the island of Bali. Kind of looks like this little. There are 7 regencies, and so they have like a pairing where it's like a battle of the bands, and basically 4 nights you have 4 pairing groups. And I was lucky enough to be in the group, the first non I think it was the first non-Balinese. It was definitely the first one from America to go like on main stage, and it was the first one that had male and female playing together. I think I'm pretty sure of that. So I was really proud of that, and uh, the piece that was written for us, which we're going to watch a video of, this long preamble is to kind of give you context of this video, is this concept of Gaia. It's like the manifestation of the enjoyment of playing and your personality. And sometimes the personalities are very almost military, where everybody does exactly the same thing, and they pick the stick up, it's called a pongal, at the exact same height, and there's a lot of almost like American marching band. But then there's this other thing that's really more organic where it's just everybody's just having fun. And some people are dancing while they're playing, some people are throwing the sticks, some people have something choreographed. So the group I was playing with in these battle of the bands, you play a piece, the other group plays a piece. You don't see them in this video, but they're sitting across from us. And sometimes the dancers go over and like do dance like in their face to try and to freak them out a little bit, like a sporting event. And this was a piece actually written by an American who's probably the biggest Balinese gamelan guy in America, named Andy McGraw. And we were performing at this big performance. It was on Bali TV, which I have a kind of funny story after that. But we were playing in Bali TV, and it was like, it's a big deal, and we were like, and the Balinese who were joining us came to America to work with us a little bit. And they were like, boy, you guys just look like you're not having fun. And it took weeks, and we tried moving around. You got to admit, in Gamelan, at Queens College, Wanasari, the Gamelan is very, it's a lot of students who are want to be professional musicians. But in regular American gamelan world, it's scientists and school teachers and a musician, and they're just there to have fun. So this idea of like this next level of how to show your enjoyment in opera, they do it all the time, but in classical music we do it. So we know how to present ourselves. But this was like a different world. So we would try doing things, and they'd bring mirrors and set it up so we'd have to watch it when we played, see what we look like. And it was a disaster because we were trying to do something else. And finally, Andy was like, let's just do something uniquely American, something weird. And let's do we used to call it American Gaia, this physical manifestation of it. So what you're seeing is you're going to see one idiot, namely me, be really almost inappropriate, but in a very goofy kind of way. And the piece is corny. It gets it. I tried to have Freddie include the second half of the piece, which is a real serious contemporary piece. This piece represented like the contemporary music version of the competition, as it were. It's not you don't really win anything or anything, but it's just kind of like a battle of the bands for who can claim like who they won. And proud to say they anointed us like a tie, but we didn't really deserve. We were really good, but the group across from us was like a whole different level, but it was good, and it was a lot of fun, and we got a lot of respect. And you'll hear people like talking during it. It's filmed. I don't know if this clip is from Bali TV or this is somebody's personal clip of it. I don't remember, but well, anyway, in the middle you'll see, and there's references to a lot of American things, including American flags and all this. So it's about 7 minutes long. The ending stuff is cool and contemporary. It's in 7/8. It gets all weird. And I'm going to be embarrassed, but I'm going to watch. For all of you out there, if you're going to watch, you can make fun of me of this for like the next 10 years because it's pretty stupid. Go ahead.
All right.
I'm gonna try and go back to my camera again. So,
That was
um,
great, Michael.
yeah, so it's a silly thing. What never gets played as many times as people have like mentioned this thing to me is that the second half, one of the person who plays like the pots goes into the middle of the stage and actually does like one of those like walk like an Egyptian dances over the across the stage. So it gets like ridiculously silly. Um, Sorry, did you hear me? That's really ridiculously silly.
Yeah,
For,
yeah.
but that's it. It's like having fun and the enjoyment of that. It's funny when I was a student at Queens. I remember there was a staff person who used to come to a lot of concerts, and I would pop around a lot when I play, and they came up to me and they were like, "You shouldn't do that," and I was like so bummed out because I was just kind of like feeling the music, and here you get a chance to really just like you're almost encouraged, because when in that world, like a lot of the pieces they already know. It's like so they hear the first note, they know the style of music, they already know what the piece is going to sound like. So it's like the atmosphere and the visualization of it. And the cool thing that I like, just from perspective of this event, was that the piece, the group, the musicians, the fact it was male and female, Balinese, a couple people from Japan, Americans, somebody from Germany in there. It was like it's just like a whole host of people all doing this thing to really. I don't even know if it's an awareness, but an enjoyment and appreciation of this culture from Southeast Asia. That's like this teeny little island, half a world away. It's a really deep dive where everybody walked away with a greater understanding, a greater respect, a a camaraderie ship that crosses like cultural boundaries and things. Yeah.
Definitely. And I would definitely say I had that experience when we were there rehearsing. Going back to you with just enjoyment. I always remember when we were in rehearsals, um, just the smiles at everyone's faces when we were all playing great, but even the bigger smiles and laughs when someone would make a mistake,
Right.
which is
Right.
kind of the opposite. Like in Western music and classical music here, is you kind of get like a dirty look and like a disapproval. There, it's very lighthearted and like
Yeah.
oh boy, what did you do?
Yeah. That's right. Yeah, that's true. It is. It is. In most of the villages, they're all playing music. Not necessarily like this piece, but they're all playing music because it's part of the daily activity. So these are people who grew up together. And matter of fact, the most famous group there was from like the 1970s or something. There's this famous cassette recording that's out there. That's Peloton, I think, which is a town near where we were. And it was like it's like the most famous recording because it was just this killing ensemble, and it was just a bunch of truck drivers and farmers. Like where we were, there were like conservatory trained musicians. Even there was one or two people that got doctorates in America or in Toronto. Septa, who was with us, and the guy in the first video, Sudarana, and it's much more like conservatory, even though it's still wild music, but this group was just like these farmers, and it's just this killing recording that's like a standard for gamelan listening because they just practiced every day and enjoyed each other and became great. So.
Yeah, that recording is very wild. It's so fast. I've heard just people write about it how there's like 8 notes per second or something, or even just like crazy fast but so tight. It's not like
It's
it's
musical
just like you
too.
can hear the spaces between each one of those notes.
Oh yeah, wild stuff, and it just ridiculously like musical and interesting piece, and like just everything about it.
Absolutely. So that kind of brings us into our teacher and our experience going to Bali with our teacher Dewa Alit, and Ruka wanted to kind of I know you wanted to talk about his piece Kadituan, which we had learned before we went to Bali, and then we had studied with him, really tightening it up and honing it, and then we performed it, and we have a recording of that. So Ruka, if you wanted to.
Right. So we had this opportunity to study with Dewa Alit, who's an incredible composer. He has a mind of his unique mind of his own that thinks music in a very unique way. And I think it combines the great aspects that's already mentioned about gamelan and the tradition, just Balinese tradition in general, but also incorporating newer music from Western and elsewhere. And the most fascinating thing about his composition, in my opinion, is his overlaying of different rhythmic patterns and of different length even. And sometimes the beginning of the different patterns don't even line up. And it just creates this complicated, amazing texture. So I thought I'd share with you excerpt of the piece and maybe even show you the score of it to kind of help you visualize what's going on. Fred, if you could, yeah. Great. So this is basically the score that we use to study this piece. As you can see, it's very different from what you might be familiar with. So each letter represents the 5 pitches that are used in the piece. And also, I color coded, that was not the original part of the score, but I color coded the different parts. So as you can see, the names of the instruments are on the side. KT stands for Kantilan, and Pamade, Chalang, Jagogan in top bottom order. And I hope you can see it just by even looking at this part of it, but the red that highlights the Kantilan part are in groups of 3 subdivisions. And to that, Pamade plays da 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 da. So you'll hear that in a second in a better music than my singing.
Oh, sorry.
It's okay. Should I be turning off my video now or as I talk?
No. You
It's
should.
okay. Okay.
We were just trying to let people see the screen fuller. Probably.
Okay. So Fred, is it possible to just play the introduction of the Cantalon part and maybe even separate the Pamade, or maybe together? I'll leave that up to you, but.
Sure.
Or should I explain? Oh.
No, that's okay. So yeah, let me play a little bit of this recording because I also have the score inside of it, so you can kind of see how it lines up. This was our performance in Bali. Let me put that up. So that was that top line that Ruko you were talking about, right?
I'm talking while being muted. Yes, that's right. That's the introduction where one part, Cantelan, has their own rhythmic groupings, and there comes the Pamade that has a different melodic rhythmic pattern. Would you play that bit as well?
Yeah, so that's that grouping of 5.
Great. So those are the 2 parts that you can already hear this texture of 2 things happening. And to that, we add another part. Maybe we can just, I can talk through it and you can see the score later. But Chalongs, you can see in the video, are the 2 instruments, Alita and Dylan, if you know them. Yes, great. So they would be playing da 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 da. That's a different pattern that basically lines up with the rest of the parts that you've already heard. And then there's me in the back corner, and with Miriam, thank you. We start playing a whole different pattern that's much longer, and it takes about 5 of the cycles of the other patterns that I've been explaining to you. The jigogangs in the back, the lower pitched instruments gets a much longer cycle of pattern, and it goes da, da, da. That's the whole cycle, while the higher pitched instruments have already gone through multiples of the cycles. And what's interesting, as you'll see again on the screen as you'll listen to it, is that the beginnings of these different patterns will start not even to line up. At the beginning, it's somewhat together and it starts to misalign. And so I want you to experience that as you listen to it. But what's powerful in my experience within this piece is that, so it starts to misalign, and then there are moments that really line up at the same time. All the parts will begin their patterns. And I think in this composer's work, he takes this idea of cyclic writing, the rhythmic patterns, I believe from the original gamelan tradition that has already been talked about through different clips. But he takes it even further, misaligns and aligns it up again, and so forth and so on. Hence, it's like there's a sense of coexistence of different sense of time and perspectives all at the same time. And I think the sense of community that Michael was talking about earlier, I don't know, there's something about accepting each other and different perspectives, and this and that coexists and sometimes lines up and becomes powerful moment, this and that. And I just wanted to share that thought because I think this is a great representative of that piece. So would you play a little bit more so that we can hear the chalung and the jagogan come in? And please pay attention to the lower pitched instrument in the back that has a longer span of cycle. So we'll play the middle part, which is the slow section of the piece, and also toward the end. I want you to now experience the slow tempo, but still with this rhythmic aspect that I've been saying. But I also want to point out at this point that the drummer on the right is the composer himself in the green shirt. And it was mentioned earlier, I think, by Fred about the dance being an integrated part of the Balinese music. And even the composer just being playing the drum, you can see his hand, it's so beautiful, and his musicality and sensitivity is expressed through the way he plays the drums. So that's something I also wanted to point out. And how the slow part kind of stops the music, but there's very active rhythm going on that pushes the music forward, and then we get to the climax point toward the end. It builds up. So if you could play that clip and enjoy the rest, that'll be great.
You have to have the dogs barking or the chicken.
That's right.
So otherwise, it's not Bali.
Yeah, I was thinking how, just looking at the video, what you were saying, Michael, about like it's so integrated into home life and just having neighbors walk in while we're playing. And so just to mention, that was at home of the composer, he just has that space at home, people just coming in, neighbors coming in. That was great.
Yeah. Thanks, Rika. That was fantastic. Um, Freddie, I know We also had a student involved in this who's not Indonesian, but she wanted to just tell her part of it. She's from the Philippines, and she actually turned us on it was interesting. She told us about an instrument in the Philippines that I didn't even know existed that is similar to the one in Indonesia, and I had no idea. I thought that was so cool. We had to. It's Georgia Herrera, Freddie. You can kind of give her props, but she couldn't be here because they're recording something today, so she pre-recorded something with Freddie.
Yep, absolutely. So this is a brief conversation I had, kind of tying into the celebration of the Asian and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. So here's a short clip of a conversation we had. All right. Next, we have a member of our group, Georgia Herrera. Thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, my name is Georgia Herrera. I'm from Queens, New York. I'm a music education major at Queens College. I'm also 100% Filipino. My parents are Filipino. They were born in the Philippines, and I was born here in America.
Nice. So I have a couple of questions, just kind of get your perspective of your experience and experience in the group. So first off, just kind of a general music question. Have you played a quote unquote traditional style of music on traditional instruments before?
No, I've never played traditional music before I joined Gamelan. Um, but I've actually seen this Filipino traditional instrument like online called the kulintang. And my parents told me about it like when I was growing up. And when I first saw the group perform, maybe like 3 years ago, I made a connection to the music, and I saw the rayong instrument that we have and noticed it was very similar to that Filipino traditional instrument, which is called the kulintang.
Nice. So you saw a performance of the Gamelan class and
Hmm.
made that connection. Then you were inspired to remind me. Did you take the class and then join the group, or were we? Was it like the Yowanasari proper and just kind of joined and then started playing concerts?
Yeah, I joined the class and then joined the group.
Nice, very cool. So would you say that your heritage, being Filipino, played a factor in why you wanted to join the group? You had mentioned that instrument. Did you feel a desire for that Southeast Asian connection of playing gamelan?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Since Balinese music, um, I noticed that it was very similar to the Filipino traditional music. I wanted to know more about that because I've never experienced traditional Filipino music, so I felt that Balinese music was like the closest option that I had, and it was a very great experience being in the group. Um, the instrument, the kulintang, is from this Taboli tribe. It's called the Taboli, and it's a group of indigenous people in the Philippines. So I don't know much about that personally, but because it's my roots, I felt like a very strong connection to that. So I wanted to join.
Nice. And we had been to Bali early last year before the pandemic happened. Would you say? I know for me, playing the music and wanting to get a firsthand account of studying the music, performing the music over there, and let's be honest, a beautiful vacation. Did you kind of have like a similar inspiration of why you wanted to go to Bali?
Yeah. So the main reason I went to Bali was it sounded like a dream trip. Like not only was it a vacation, but it was an opportunity to play music with my friends who are super talented musicians. So basically, we got to play music together in another country. Um, but yeah, when I went there, as soon as I stepped out of the airport, like the heat and the humidity like hit my face, and like I remembered thinking like, wow, like I could be in the Philippines right now. It's like the atmosphere was the same, the people, it's the culture is just very, very similar.
Would you say, would you go again?
Yes, yes, totally, totally. It's just absolutely beautiful. The it's like it was like paradise, I felt like. It was probably one of the best experiences I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, yeah, I would say the same, and definitely counting down the days till we go back.
Hmm.
Nice. So cool. Yeah, I appreciate Georgia you joining us for this presentation and conversation about Balinese gamelan. And
Yeah, thank you for having me.
absolutely. And I'll see you at the next rehearsal.
Yeah, totally. I can't wait.
Nice. All right. Thank you so much. That concludes our presentation. Yeah. So I wish we could get into more stuff. I wish we had more time, but kind of dealing with Alit and Alit's music. Georgia, you were talking about his modern forms and such. Um, he's it was a pleasure working with him, and not only his forms, but he's even gone so far as created his own tuning system of instruments where he has these new set of instruments and these new compositions that could really only be played on those instruments. And he performed Siklus while we were over there, all five movements of it, and it was amazing. Um,
Yeah, yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing art. It's really amazing what's going on around the world, especially in that part of the world right now, musically. Um,
sure.
I'd like to throw it out there that anybody like we're starting the class. This class, Fred Trumpy, thank you, who's with us, teaches the class, and it's the Gamelan class. It's not going to be listed for the fall, as we know, because we're still going to be dealing with just getting back into school and stuff. And this is kind of like it's easier just to do live. But in the spring, I really implore you all and advisors out there, please push the class for the spring. And for everybody, we're planning a trip back to Bali because you got to do it. Once you go once, it's kind of like a tattoo. You got once you get one tattoo, you got to get another, which I can literally say that. So
I
Fred
don't know.
does too. I don't know if Ruka has any tattoos. We won't make her divulge that. Gamelan's it's addictive, and going to Bali is certainly the most addictive. So I hope people join us. Freddie, thanks for hosting today.
My pleasure.
Dr.
Thanks for having me.
Shirney, who's one of our own faculty as well, just not teaching the Gamelan, teaching in the theory program. Thank you for joining us, and
Thank
thanks
you.
to Jane and Robin. Jane also wanted me to, I guess we will probably put on the website, or maybe she's put on the YouTube channel. There are other events coming up. This is the only music event, actually. The other ones are film and I think some readings or something, and some discussions. So I hope you enjoy those and you look for those. Maybe a note to Jane. We can put them up on our Aaron Copeland website so people can link up there somehow, if that's, or at least the links to get to them. Thank you so much, everybody. I look forward to rehearsing with you two guys. We did it recently. It was a little bit too short, and we'll have to come back again in a couple of weeks when it gets nice out. And
Yeah.
everybody's invited to come to my backyard where that first thing was filmed and play some music again.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks so much. I will.